This video is the start of a series 100 time management tips. There's no time for an introduction, so here's number 1. Wear your work clothes to bed so you're ready to go when the day starts. Brush your teeth and shower at the same time. Optimal. Neglect everything that you care about for your ambitions. Wait. I'm so sorry. That's the toxic productivity video. This video is about 100 practical time management tips that you can implement in your everyday life. First, ask yourself, what do you want out of life? You can optimize for anything, but you can't optimize for everything. There is no point in getting really fast at something that doesn't even take you where you want to go. Then write down your goal somewhere where you can see it, because that really spurs you into action. Whether that's on a computer or on a diary, if you have the goal in front of mind, then you're going to want to chase it. Time blocking is a concept that you can use from Cal Newport's book, Deep Work. Basically, you have a left-hand column and you try to block out different times of the day to do something, but you gotta have a right-hand column because your day actually changes and stuff doesn't always go according to plan. So in the right-hand column, you write down the day as it's progressing. Psst, come here. Here's a super useful method I call Dabi's time compression, TM. Parkinson's law states that work expands to fill the time available to complete it. My little hack is to try to take this to the extreme. This task that should be done in 5 hours that I compress into half an hour. The whole point is not to complete it in half an hour. The whole point is that you'll now complete that 5-hour task in 1.5 hours. Let me give you this relatable situation. Let's say that you're doing some homework or you're doing some paperwork and someone rudely comes along and they're like, hey man, can you please do this other thing? Well, basically, if you try to switch a task, some of your attention is going to be left to the task that was previous to the current task that you're doing. So that thing is called attention residue. So that's why it's really important to try to complete a whole task at once if you can. If you have a lot of tasks that you want to do, but you don't know which ones to do first, then you can use a thing called an Eisenhower Matrix to prioritize your decisions. Basically, you divide your tasks into urgent and non-urgent, and important and non-important. And so you want to do the urgent important tasks first and do the non-urgent, non-important tasks last, if at all. But I want to use tip number 7 to say that you should actively block out time for the important but non-urgent tasks, because these tasks are the ones that often get put on the back burner. When thinking about what's important, you may want to think about this thing called the Pareto principle. Basically, the economist Vilfredo Pareto in 1964 found that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the people in Italy. So it's worthwhile thinking about what 20% of tasks are going to lead to the 80% of results for you. Here's a really reckless time management strategy. I call it the strategic destruction method. Basically, if you haven't done a particular task by a certain time, often you can just ignore that task. Because the thing is, if that task was important, but if that task is 6 months old, for example, then getting rid of it, is probably not going to affect your life. Here's a really interesting tip from the time management guru Brian Tracy. Basically, if you think in minutes rather than hours, then you'll appreciate that time more because you might block off 5 minutes for a task that other people might block off a whole hour for. Imagine how productive you could be if you thought in seconds, and there are 1 billion nanoseconds in 1 second, so if you thought in nanoseconds, then just kidding, that's really stupid. By the way, to save you time, I've also created a PDF version of this entire video, and you can download that from the website below. But a really common question is, how do you pick up the motivation to be productive and avoid distractions? Approach number 1 is to eat that frog, which means trying to do the most hard task first so that everything else becomes easier afterwards. You push through the pain of the first task and then you just power through. But to be honest, I actually find approach number 2 better, which is to do the easiest task first and warm up to the hard task. Because once you build momentum, then conquering big things just seems a bit easier. Other approach, writing the tasks that you want to do before bed, is actually really helpful. This is a concept called pre-implementation intention, and you're much more inclined to do something if you just created the plan to do it in the first place. Number 14 is to log your time. Keeping track of your hours and what you do means that you can actually reflect on it and change your life accordingly. Tip 15 is that you can do this with the screen time app on your iPhone or equivalent on Android. I pretty much have my do not disturb mode turned on all the time. There's a study in the Journal of Experimental Psychology that says that receiving a phone notification but not replying to it is just as distracting as responding to a phone call. 17 is a super interesting insight. Time management is actually pain management. So when you're reflecting about the stuff you're doing, think about the exact feeling that you're getting as you're doing it. And by being aware of a feeling of pain, you can actually disarm it. If you're struggling to start on a task, then something I learned from the YouTuber Thomas Frank is that if you just start a task and say, okay, after a few minutes I want to stop it, so I'm just going to do a few minutes of that task, then you'll often find that you end up doing a lot more of that task anyway. Number 19 is don't beat yourself up for not doing something. Being kinder to yourself actually makes stressful tasks a lot more doable than berating yourself constantly. Otherwise, you're just adding this unnecessary friction towards everything that you do. Number 20 is a super duper ultra mega colossal jumbo hyper hack. There's been a few times where I've been able to record 8 to 10 videos in a single day, and the way that I do this is called batching. Basically, you just set up one recording session or one work session to do a whole bunch of tasks at once. You basically don't reset up everything, and then you save a ton of time doing that. As an example, while watching this, you can feel free to batch watching this video with clicking the subscribe button.
Smooth like butter.
The next 10 tips can literally double the amount of time that you get in a single day. But we're gonna continue that in the next video, which will eventually be here. If not, here's another video that you might like to check out too.